on, demons. Come on, demons. Come on, demons. Come on, come on, come on, come on, demons. I've got this feeling.
Good evening, Demon fans, and welcome back to the Demonland podcast. My name is Andy. And well, it took another flag, this time from our AFLW team, to get me out of the funk of having gone out in straight sets from the 2022 final series. The acquisitions in the trade and draft period have also lifted my spirits, and that change has renewed my hope as we near 100 days until the 2023 season, which will see us play off in another 2021 grand final replay to kick off the new year. In a moment, I'll be interviewing our national recruiting manager, Jason Taylor, to discuss our trade and draft period, and hopefully we can get an insight into those pickups. It's always an enlightening conversation with Jason. Later in the show, I'll be joined by my regular co-host, George and Binman, and I'll get their thoughts on the trade and draft period. In addition, we'll have a chat about our inaugural AFLW Premiership. But first, Jason Taylor. Our guest tonight is the Melbourne Football Club's national recruiting manager, Jason Taylor, who has just completed his 10th draft for the Demons. He has overseen the drafting of premiership players such as Christian Salem, James Harms, Christian Petrarca, Angus Brayshaw, Alex Neil-Bullen, Clayton Oliver, Charlie Spargo, Bailey Fritsch, Harrison Petty, Tom Sparrow, James Jordan, Luke Jackson, Cozzy Pickett, Trem Rivers and Jake Bowie. He was also at the club when we acquired a few other premiership stars such as Michael Hibberd, Jake Lever, Stephen May, Ed Langdon and Ben Brown. From that list, it is clearly evident that we are talking with Demon royalty. There was a ground zero for the genesis of the drought-breaking premiership. Jason, thanks for giving up your time to join us once again on the Demonland podcast.
Pleasure, Andrew.
Now, that list of players that I just named is quite impressive. You really were an integral part of putting together that premiership team. You and Lammy, that's Tim Lamb, the Demons list manager, probably don't get the kudos from the wider Demon community that you deserve for the flag. You must be pretty proud of that accomplishment.
Oh, look, I think, we're all proud of what we achieved that season, and we're all working hard to try and maximise the group we've got at the moment. I'm sure everyone got their credit for what simply is really a team effort. It comes down to a lot of facets within an organisation that all have to come together, not just one. So, it was very pleasing. We lick our wounds from this year and look to a new dawn ahead and hopefully another successful year next year.
Well, we certainly are hungry for it after we got that little taste. And I just want to briefly talk about the trade period. Having lost Luke Jackson, we obviously had a serious need to replace that backup ruck-sized hole that we have in the team, and the acquisition of Grundy fills that need. Similarly, with Sam Wiedemann exploring his option at the Bombers, we have secured a like-for-like replacement in Josh Shackey. And then late in the trade period, we were able to secure Lockie Hunter, who will no doubt complement Ed Langdon on the other wing. And while strictly not under your purview in your role at the club, can you take us through those trades?
Oh, basically, Tim Lamb's been on record with all those. Is that if you start with Brodie Grundy, well, clearly with Luke having to, I suppose, in his own mind, negotiate what was going to happen throughout the year. We had to plan accordingly. And in those scenarios, you plan for Luke to stay or you plan if Luke's to leave. So, Tim went about setting about Brodie as a real target once that came about. And he did a really good job in attracting him to our footy club along with Simon and Alan Richardson. As far as the replacement, we think we come out on top there. It's a really good acquisition for the club. And whilst he had some injury issues last year, Brodie, he's had an outstanding career to date. He's a two-time All-Australian, and we're really looking forward to seeing him work in tandem with Max. And as you said, with the departure of Sam, Sam came to Tim and just spoke about looking for, potential further opportunities. So just given our relationship with Sam and the character of him. We let him explore that, which ultimately took him to Essendon, but that wasn't to happen without having the ability to replace him, and that's where Tim got to work and was able to acquire Josh Chackey to allow that to happen as Sam was in contract. So it was important that we did feel that, and that was able to be done with Josh coming in the door, and just later in the trade period, an opportunity came up with Lockie, and yes, we feel just with his his ability, he's the best and fairest winner at the Bulldogs, and he really does have great running capacity.
Before we talk about this year's draft crop, I just want to get your thoughts on Luke Jackson leaving. Obviously, drafting interstate players is always going to be fraught with danger, and inevitably it comes with the risk of them wanting to go home. We saw that with Luke, and we saw that play out with Horn Francis too. And based on your draft history, you're not adverse to drafting players from outside of Victoria. Nibbler, Petty, Sparrow, Jackson, Pickett, Rivers, Van Rooyen, Woden, and now Adams. What are your thoughts on Jackson leaving? You pushed hard to draft him with the coveted third pick. He was an integral part of the premiership. The third quarter was phenomenal. I'm not asking or fishing for any regrets about it. I just want to get your take on, generational talent leaving, and is there any trepidation from you or the club about casting the net outside of Victoria?
No, there isn't. And, it's a national competition. There's been a little bit of noise around it. This year in particular, but we've done a study on it, and if you look through the percentages over, a decade or so, it's not really that high, the percentage of players that return home. We go in with, facts in our mind, and we treat each case as a case-by-case scenario and do our homework around that. And if we're satisfied that there's no real risk of that and the talent gap's not too far, well, then we're happy to select from anywhere in the country, because otherwise we then start to compromise exactly what we do for a job. And in a national competition, you should be free to select from anywhere in the country.
There was some smoke about Cozzy in the trade period. Nothing came of it. The club was adamant that there was nothing to the rumours. Is 2023 with Cozzy going to mirror the Willie won't he leave circus that we experienced in the past season with Jacko?
No, I wouldn't have thought so. I think, that all things are fine there. I think it was just, I'm not sure where that came from, to be honest, and nor is Tim. And, we move forward. We're happy there. And I think it was just the trade period itself might have, with that movement with, say, Horn, Francis and Jackson, I think that was just a bit of smoke out of nowhere, that one.
I think Kane Corns might have had something to do with it.
Might have lit that fire,
yeah. As I mentioned in the intro, you've just completed your 10th draft with the club. We went in with pick 13, and there was speculation that we would try to jump up the draft order by doing a deal with Essendon. Is there any truth to that? How far off were we? And who were you looking at that really pointy end of the draft?
There's some truth in that. I think we owe it to the organisation that, if we've got assets, that we try and secure, who we feel it could be, generational talent. Clearly they come higher up the draft order. So we looked at opportunities of exploring that, but we weren't going to do it at the detriment of, our assets that we hold into the future as well. So, yes, we explored it, but it had to be a fair and reasonable deal in the end for that to happen. And as often happens is that clubs that hold those high picks tend to enter negotiations, but they very, very rarely come to anything. So nothing came of that in the end. And we were looking at a couple of players at that range that we thought, could be very good players for a long time.
We took Matthew Jefferson from Oakley Chargers with what ended up being pick 15. He's a 190-centimetre key position forward. He's named in the the under-18 All-Australian team, and he kicked 7 goals in a match against Western Australia. In fact, 5 goals were kicked in one quarter. We're in the fortunate position where we can develop him at Casey, as we did with Van Rooyen last season. Can you take us through that selection?
Yeah, we go into every draft, looking to pick the best available player, and but also we need to take into consideration needs, but not to do that at the expense of the talent. So we've found ourselves in a pretty fortunate position where we're selecting with Matthew, and we felt that along with Jacob coming in last year, that was certainly another need that we needed to bring in, and as you said, quite rightly so, is give them time to develop. And Matty at 195. Whilst he's got to put some size on his frame, we're confident he can do that. And he has, he's got a bit of growth to go as far as his physical development, his endurance, and so the other boys we brought in this year, but we feel they've got the right attitude, and that'll come over time. He's certainly got the footy IQ and the aerial ability for his position.
Our second pick, number 38 overall, saw us select Jed Adams from Peel Thunder in WA. He's a 196 defender. What type of role do you see Jed eventually taking, and which current Demon defender do you most liken him to?
Yeah, it's interesting. He's a bit of a mixture of probably Petty and Lever, and can even fill the role that Stephen May plays. He's a very good aerial player, comes at the ball really well. He did play a lot of his footy as a junior forward, so we've seen snippets of that this year, but he was predominantly a key defender. He's come into the program after a couple of years of just injury, so he hadn't had a real continuity over his last, say, 3 years, but started to get some this year before he hurt his shoulder later in the year. We really liked Jed and his potential, his upside, if you like, which can be a dangerous word, but we feel that he plays footy in the right manner, and he'll probably start down back and then, but who knows what can happen in the future. But we've got another. We just thought it was an important time if the talent was there in the key position areas that we like to select this year, and that gives us some real flexibility going forward to be really creative with what stands as a pretty good hand we hold next year.
Is he over those injury concerns from during the season?
Oh, he's had a shoulder, yeah. So he'll be slower. He's got to build his base, and he probably won't get back into starting into full training like late January, February. So, look, there's no rush on him. We'll give him time. It's a long-term acquisition, both him and Jefferson. And for that matter, the next boys we'll talk about. Yeah,
I'll get into those right now. We secured a couple of rookies that I'd love to get your thoughts on. First was Big Will Verrill from South Adelaide. He's an athletic 199-centimetre ruckman. And with Majak Dor and Mitch Brown retiring, Sam Wiedemann being traded to Essendon, we really do need that backup project ruckman. We also secured another prospective ruckman in ex-basketballer Kaya Farris-White. Can you take us through those two ruck acquisitions, and given the absence of the aforementioned retirees and Sam going as well, what role do you see these two young boys playing at Casey next season?
Yeah, well, again, Will's had some groins that he kind of battled through the year manfully. And played a decent amount of footy, but we just need to set him up for success and get that right and bring him through the pre-season and build his body, because he does have a naturally good vertical leap. He's and good follow-up at ground level, and he can go forward and catch it. That's something he does have up in his armoury. So, he's going to take some time, but we like the way he plays with aggression. And we like his skill set. We put a lot of time into him, and coming into this year, I think if he had about a better run at it, he might have been a higher prospect. He'll take time to develop. And Kaya Farris-White, that just came about through networks throughout the year, and we brought him in and screened him. He's 206. He has all those Category B prospects who have come from basically another sport. It gives you a little bit of confidence. He played some footy as a junior, but he's got a long way to go. But he's hit the ground with a really good attitude, and his running capabilities are quite good. But he's a bit of a baby deer at the moment, mate. So he's just got to find his feet, and we just thought it was a good opportunity to. They're hard to find, and sometimes you just got to look outside the square when you're looking for those types. Do they always win? Well, maybe not, but we're confident that he showed enough aptitude in his screening of him, like we would any draftee, that he'll give it his fair shot.
Given that there's no development league anymore in the seconds level, where do these guys play if they're not in the Casey team?
Yeah, well, we had to sit down and formalise that, but there have been opportunities through the NAB League where players have been able to do that in the past. So we'll look at those opportunities once we sit down as the dust just settled for now.
Our final rookie selection was one out of left field. Oliver Sexton is a powerful mid-sized forward who played at Mansfield and Xavier. He kicked 50-plus goals for Mansfield under-18s in 6 or 7 games, including that massive haul of 24 goals in one match. Oliver was present at the pre-draft Connors Sports training session as a low-key addition amongst a bevy of eventual drafted talent. Reports suggest that he impressed at this outing. Is that where you guys became aware of him, or was he on your radar prior to this session?
Well, he to take you through the process, yeah, and sometimes the acquisition of players through a drafting sense can come up in many weird and colourful ways, and you've got to follow them all through. And he did train at that session, and he did some really eye-catching things. Now, it's only a training session, so we're not going to get carried away with that, but it does then make you dig a little bit and refer back to some reports we had on him. And then we've been able to we've just purchased this new software that allows us to get access to a lot of competitions that are outside of our normal platforms. And so we had the ability to go through all his vision from last year and this year, as well as couple that with a couple of the reports we had on him. And, and there's just some real promise with him. He was going to be set to play at Oakley Chargers next year, so in the NAB League. And we just like what we saw. He's a really natural goal kicker. He's very clean, takes the ball well in the air. Yes, he's got a bit of work to do physically and build his endurance, but we feel that he's got the right attitude once we sat down and spoke with him, and that he'll give it his best shot. And, there's always those possibilities with those players. And as we, the mid-season draft's, relatively new, and, it's been going 3 or 4 years. You've got to look at opportunities, and sometimes these kids you think, well, he might just jump out of the box early and get going, and then all of a sudden, we're hoping we're up the higher end of the ladder. You may not get opportunity to select these guys. So we thought it was just a calculated, not risk, it was an opportunity really. So we backed ourselves in, and we made that selection.
Jason, I'd like to take you through the remaining draft picks from the past few drafts that we're yet to see pull on a seniors Guernsey, and get your take on how they're travelling, how far off or how close they are to us seeing them run out onto the G. Many D's fans were yelling and screaming for Jacob Van Rooyen to get a call up late in the season. The footy department resisted temptation to pull the pin. Was he close last season? And how early this season do you think it'll be until we see him debut?
Oh, he certainly. I think we need to temper the fact that he's a 19-year-old key position player, and he had really an excellent first season at VFL level, kicking 36 goals, which is not often done. But I think it was really fortunate to be able to play him all year. He played in the Premiership, and just he gathered confidence each week. I felt throughout the year, so I think that's a really good platform to set him up for this year. Now he's come back really strong for the pre-season.
Yeah, I saw a photo. Looks big.
Yeah, he's a big, powerful kid who's competitive, and he'll certainly, like a lot of the boys who come back, he'll put himself in the frame to try and get an opportunity early in the piece.
I'll quick fire a couple of names of the others, starting with Bailey Laurie.
Yeah, Bailey's come back really well, actually. He looks really good. He ran well in the 2K. He looks a little bit leaner in the body. We almost treated him, not almost, we did treat him like a first-year player last year. He had, a significant cheekbone eye socket injury, and then another injury, I think it was his shoulder after that. So he really never got an opportunity to get going after missing some significant footy with COVID as well. So we were really pleased with his development last year, and we're expecting him to develop even further this year.
Blake Howes, I saw a picture of him. He looks in good shape too.
Yeah, no, he's running well, Blake. All the boys have come back really hungry, which is good. Blake again started last year really well. Was probably, pushing for selection a little bit in the early piece there. And then he had that foot injury, so that kind of set him back. And then, as you know, it's, you miss that patch of 12 or so weeks. It's difficult for young players to recapture their form, but he battled along well and was able to be part of the premiership success as well. So, again, he's a young player. He's lightly framed. He's got some real speed about him and smarts and an aerial game. So, we're excited by what he can eventually turn into.
Taj Wowoden?
Yeah, very impressed on how he's come back, actually. Watching training yesterday, he looks like he's filled out even more. He's running well, real professional. I think that he'll give himself a chance this year, Taj, I reckon, the way he's come back.
Daniel Turner got a call up on Queen's birthday, was very impressive in the few minutes that we got to see him, but his debut was short-lived with that terrific injury. Do you reckon we'll see him make a return this season?
Yeah, I certainly hope so. For Daniel, he's tracking really well, as you say. He's a little bit, he's quite an aggressive player. He's a little bit over-exuberant on debut and caught himself a bit of mischief. But, we love the way he goes about it. Disco, and he's a pretty smart player, and we think he's got a bright future. He's come back well and looks fit and lean and ready to go.
Trent Burgoyne, son of former Port Adelaide player Peter, has been invited to train with the D's over the pre-season in a bid to earn a rookie spot, as is Kai Turner. Can you tell us a little bit about these two, and are there any other train-on players at the moment?
No, that's all we can have, and it's really just looking for one spot. Obviously we had a little bit of a look at Trent through his junior years, and he's at Port Magpies last year, but he just hadn't had a lot of continuity with his body, unfortunately, which is a challenge for him. But he does have some speed on the outside, so we just thought we'd bring him over and give him a look. And Kai Turner, again, it was just one of those opportunities through a network of mine that just said this kid was going okay at Old Harbour in the amateurs, and so I watched him a number of times towards the back end of the year, and I thought he showed a fair bit of promise, actually. And his VFL footy at Frankston, a couple of games he played there was, watching the vision back on that was pretty good as well. So we've had a fair look at Kai, and we just thought he's worth an opportunity. If he's to come on and buy himself an opportunity, we feel we're pretty well stacked in there. Young tools, but he's got some good speed, good endurance, and he's got a pretty good attitude. So we'll just see how he goes. It's just an opportunity for these boys to put their best foot forward, and without any guarantees attached to it.
Got a couple of father-son prospects on the horizon. Kynan Brown, how's he tracking? I think he's available next year.
Yeah, Kynan's going well. He's a good kid with a good attitude, and he's in the club now. He's training at the moment, gets an opportunity to do that for a few weeks. And, I was like all our young draftees that come in, they're pretty nervous on day one. And, so he's just blowing out a bit of nervous energy the other day. But, he had a pretty good year at NAB league level, and it'll be interesting to see how he develops further this year.
I believe Noah Uze, son of our current assistant coach, is also in the system. You're having a look at him?
Yeah, we certainly are. We track all our father-sons who are playing footy at a decent level, and, he's at Caulfield Grammar and in the Chargers program, so we'll certainly track him amongst others.
And the one we're sort of most excited is still a little bit further away, Kalani White. I see photos of him on Jeff's social media. He's almost as tall as Jeff is at the moment, and from the clips of his basketball and footy that Jeff sometimes posts, it seems like he's quite athletic and has a bit of skill.
Yeah, he's extremely athletic. He's quite tall. He's growing at a rapid rate. I think he's caught dad, so he's. Yeah. He's got some exciting athletic ability, that's for sure.
And finally, Jason, you've overseen 10 drafts. You've drafted 15 premiership players from the national draft. This might be asking who your favourite kid is, but do you have a favourite out of any of the ones you've drafted?
Oh, yeah. It's hard to say, really. I mean, you kind of love them all, but if you're coming from the angle of, I suppose, Harmsy, a rookie pick,
yep.
I think, and he's a Melbourne supporter, so I was pretty happy for him, to be honest. But no, they're all good. You like them all for varying reasons, and you want to see that success for them because they work hard and they deserve it.
Well, Harmsy was certainly living the dream of every one of us D supporters, that's for sure. Jason, I really want to thank you for your time. It's really insightful every time we speak to you. And thank you very much. And a massive thank you as well for putting together the pieces of the puzzle to bring us that drought-breaking premiership. Thank you.
It was very special. Thanks, Andrew.
That was Melbourne Football Club's National Recruiting Manager, Jason Taylor. It's always a very enlightening conversation with him. As I mentioned in the interview, he's personally responsible for drafting of 15 premiership players, in addition to being a part of the team that brought in 5 others. So that's 20 of the 23 immortals who broke the drought and gave us long-suffering Demon fans a taste of premiership glory. Jason's track record certainly speaks for itself, and that's why I've got complete faith in him at the draft table, no matter which picks we enter any draft with. What were your takeaways from the conversation, George? Welcome, George, actually, and welcome, Bim Man. George, what are your takeaways from that?
Welcome, Demon Landers. Welcome, Andy. Firstly, some bad news here on Demon Land, where we break all the news. Andy's had a serious injury in the preseason and won't be available till the first game due to his shoulder having been popped out. And it's a long and quite boring story, actually, about how he did it. But we'll be lucky to see him before the first bounce next year.
I don't think, I'm telling you the way I am now, there's no way I'm playing round one. I'll tell you that now.
All right, we'll compare you to Max King and see who comes back first. How's that?
Yeah, that's true. Well, if I'm nearly 3 weeks ahead of him. So yeah, there's no way he's playing round one. Or we know that now. I think they've said he's going to miss the first few weeks.
So they say now. Let's
it'll be longer than that.
Yeah, look, it's great. Great listening to Jason. He doesn't give much away because there's a fair amount of intellectual property that has to stay silent because
and I knew that
they miss out on someone this year. They're still keeping an eye on players and things like that, and who we might have chased. But yeah, it's an invidious job he has. The better he is at this job, the worse the hand he gets in the following year. So I don't know that there'd be many job descriptions like that, but. What I really liked about the interview as a total was the relationship between the servicing the needs of the club on field and seeking the talent in the future. And I think I heard some years ago a recruiting manager say something along the lines of you trade for needs and you draft for talent. And the difficult thing is when you're trying to trade, there's you don't necessarily get your needs if they're not available. But this year, I think we've been very lucky, for want of a better word, that people like Grundy were available. All of a sudden, Hunter's available. That these were filling some of our needs that we desperately needed. We saw during the year when we're doing things like playing Melcham at full forward and Charlie Spargo on the wing and Wiedemann in the ruck. That told you our needs going forward because of circumstances that occurred during the year. But I think the recruitment and trading teams work seriously on those and they've addressed them pretty well. So it's been a very good outcome, I think, for us, given our circumstances, losing people like Jackson in particular.
B-Man, welcome to the podcast. Welcome back to the podcast.
G'day, Andy. G'day, George. G'day, Demon Landers. And I jumped on just before the show started, and George and Andy were talking about Andy's injury. And I presume when George asked you, can you get it up, he was referring to your shoulder. I hope so for your sake, because you said not yet. I'm running with the shoulder. But fantastic interview, Andy. That was great. It was awesome. The things that jumped out for me, just the sort of top of mind things, were how many times he mentioned attitude. And so much attitude is, like, it's always been thus, hasn't it, in terms of, recruitment. But I think it's like the point I made earlier in the season, or at the end of the season, is such a demanding sport now to play aerobically, and fitness is that you can have all the talent in the world, but if you're not prepared to run the sort of times that they did in the time trial this week, or do the sort of work like you mentioned, the boys all coming back in ripping shape. When I started following footy in the 70s, there was no players coming back in ripping shape. So attitude, that his emphasis on attitude, I think he mentioned it about all the players, and in particular, even the ones who that you asked about. So that one jumped out. Another thing that jumped out a little bit was Laurie. It was interesting to hear his comments about Laurie, and that they viewed last year as is essentially his first year of footy, which I thought was really interesting, and it was good to hear. And partly on the back of George's legitimate concerns about our depth is, Laurie is a player that we took relatively high in the draft. What was he, 31, wasn't he, or something?
No, he was earlier than that, wasn't he, George?
I can't remember.
I'll look up, keep going. I
thought Bowie and Laurie were the pick apart. In any case, that so that's good that they are still confident about about his progress. The other thing is sort of it actually made me think also of George was his comment about JVR not bringing him in last year, and George's point that he made about not risking his development. And the reason that jumped out at me was because, one, it's clever, but two, it speaks to a long-term plan for the footy club that Goodwin's been talking about now ever since he's joined. It's not about one premiership. It's about being in the frame to win premierships for an extended period of time. And love or hate Geelong, you have to give Geelong credit for their ability to stay in the frame, as say in that window, and keep that window of opportunity open. And so in a way, for me, your point, George, is a good one around the players they pick. But I mean, Jefferson, he's not kidding that that kid's going to take a few years to build up. He's one of the smallest players I can recall being recruited to the Melbourne Footy Club for a long time for a forward. Like even Cook was, he was bigger than Jefferson. So, that to me speaks to a confidence about the future. I think it is building a list that's the future. And a sort of related comment is clearly even his response about is it Jed Adams? Sorry,
Jed Adams.
Jed Adams was he's been playing defence, but Taylor was quick to mention that he could also go up forward.
Yeah, I had that down.
Jefferson's a forward. We've got a surfeit of marking sort of talls now that it would appear. Disco is down there still, and he's got defenders coming in on top of him. So, but it makes me think that they're thinking of Adams is forward, definitely Jefferson's forward. So that's obviously a need. There's clearly everyone knows it. And just the final thought I had was I would love to know more about what he meant by the software and the capacity to get the video from other competition, and it probably speaks to. In the States, you'd imagine for Gridiron and for NFL and stuff, they would have footage of, I know in basketball, I know for a fact they have footage of 10-year-olds playing. Same in soccer, it's incredible the detail. They have pro scouts who are only looking at primary school age kids in NBA, and I presume it's the same for NFL. So I'd be interested to know what software he was referring to, but it does speak to the extent to which they're looking and searching for those players. And at the top of, they've both got to get the talent and go get the attitude. That combination is a pretty rare combination, isn't it? So, but yeah, just the other thought, Andy, that was a terrific interview. Really, super professional and really interesting. And well done.
Thank you. I think he mentioned that software in relation. Was that with that Oliver Siston that sort of once they sort of saw him at that training thing, they went back to this software to sort of have a look, I guess, at some footage of him throughout the year, because he obviously, might have slightly been on the radar, but certainly not to the point where they were considering drafting him, at least in the rookie draft. But what's interesting with him is that, they after seeing him, they thought, all right, maybe we'll look at him at the mid-season draft. But then once they sort of had a look at his video, they thought, oh, well, if he goes into the Oakley Chargers next year and, show something very early on.
Wasn't that Adams was the one that could go into the Chargers in the NAB?
No, that's Adams. He's drafted this. That Oliver Seston, the guy who kicked 24 goals for Mansfield.
Yeah.
So that he was the guy that would be playing if no one picked him up. If we didn't pick him in the rookie draft now, then he would be playing with Oakley Chargers, and is a draft, I think, eligible age that someone could pick him in the mid-season draft, I guess, if he showed something.
Right, so we locked him away.
So we've taken, he said, well, not a calculated risk, but not a risk. It's sort of.
They're all calculated risks, aren't they? We've just drafted out or traded out Weed. He requested a trade. He was a top 10 draft pick. They're all calculated
risks. Course.
Whereas your point about losing Jackson, thought he was pretty phlegmatic about that.
Yeah, I just. The question, look, I don't want to. Do you regret drafting him? And that wasn't the question. It was more just ask about, people don't want to draft from interstate. Is that an issue? But they said they've done the calculations, and no, it's not an issue.
Well, the question I had in my mind actually, after he answered that, actually was what's his feeling, not about because thinking about all of the work that he does to pick these players. And as you said, that was a top pick 3, that was a coveted number 3. It wasn't a speculative pick 30. And then, so a lot of time and effort. And you made an excellent point because it was in that video. He really went to bat for Jackson in that video, like the one that the MFC released.
Yep.
So, he's, I wonder to what extent there must be some feeling for someone like him, Jason Taylor, to think, oh, geez, he's let me down. I mean, I know that it's footy, it's a professional code. Of course, they play wherever. I've got no, real major drama against Jackson. But, still on a personal level, it would be hard not to feel a little bit taken aback that someone that you've gone to bat for and really pushed hard for and put all the time and effort to land him leaves 3 years later.
The winning the flag helped.
Sorry.
I think
it was interesting, though, that he also spoke about the contingency plans that they had in place, even from obviously when Jackson was being mooted to be on the move. Does he stay? Does he go? They were already looking around at who was available and obviously unearthed the Grundy option.
Mid-season from memory, talk was that we met with him mid-season, Grundy. So one, that's really great for the full club. But like we talked during the season, is the problem for me about Jackson leaving was less about Jackson leaving, more about the fact that our game plan is based around a 2-ruck model. Yeah. And we needed to replace Jackson. Yeah. So there's just so few players who can play that role. To be able to land a bloody All-Australian who can do it and run the 15 kilometres that he's going to have to run is really, I think that'll, as the season progresses next season, how big a deal that was, how important it was for our future success will become clearer and clearer.
Yeah, and given that the only other rucks I think available that were moved were Rory Lobb and Meek, both from Fremantle. And was it Max in the interview when they came to him and said, "We've got a rucking partner for you," and he said something along the lines of, "Oh, don't tell me it's Lobb."
Yeah, that's what I heard.
And he's like, really, Lobb's a good example of what I'm talking about the lack of. He would have been the sort of one of the few ones available, but he's not really a great ruckman.
Or a great forward.
He's a forward ruck, not a ruck forward. And he's not, he's an all right forward when he's on site.
He kicked 36 goals for the season.
Yeah, he's all right. He goes missing, but
but we got the good one.
Yeah. Look, it seems in this draft we've definitely gone. Obviously, we've gone tall to try. You have a look at who we've lost, and just even the backups that we lost. Whether it's Wiedemann, Majak Dor, who didn't play a game anyway, Mitch Brown, who was only really in case of emergency break glass, but therefore gone. We're sort of tried to future proof and look. These guys are all development because they're like Van Rooyen this season. That's going to be Jefferson, Adams. They're not playing seniors, but we're sort of future-proofing our talls. Verrill, we've got 2 project ruckmans in Verrill, and the other guy, Farris White's even more of a project. And I think maybe
in
next
a way,
year,
it's a bit of a throwback to like in the early days of the draft when if you're a stronger club, you can do that, can't you?
we can do that
You
because
can pick your players.
we
but
don't
if
need the
you're a team
midfielders.
if you need success quickly, like the pressure's different, and so we can pick someone like Jefferson in the knowledge that realistically, just looking at his body, like JVR, he could have probably played physically last year. I'm glad in hindsight that they. Well, who knows? But I'm glad in hindsight they didn't, because it wouldn't have made much difference.
No, I don't think so. But Jefferson won't. I can't imagine next year playing.
Yeah, I mean, unless he suddenly morphs into some, he's 3 years away, isn't he, from playing?
Yeah, 2 or 3. Look, they'll get him into a program throughout the year and then over pre-season next year.
Yeah,
so we'll see. I mean, did you
and
see the photos of Van Rooyen?
Part of it, the food stuff.
Did you see Van Rooyen? Pictures of him during the week. He's really filled out. Not that he was a skinny lad, but he looks in good shape. I'm quite excited to see him play.
Yeah, and just quick, he didn't say that. Of course, he didn't say that Van Rooyen's gonna. Yeah, he'll definitely play, but he did mention, and I just forget who it was, that he was a good chance at Woden.
Yeah.
So he sounded really impressed with Wowie's return, and maybe he's got a bit of a soft spot for him, I'm not sure. But of all the players he mentioned, Wowie was the one he seemed to be most confident about getting a senior gig. So
but I
thought that was interesting.
He also said Blake Howes was very close early on in the year to getting a game, and then had the foot injury, and then that set him back. So look, stuff to look forward to. All right. Well, there's our draft, and then on to preseason training. Once again, Demonland's got a bevy of track watchers. George, I haven't seen you down at training yet this year, but I'm sure you'll make it down there soon. But our track watchers have been out in force, bringing preseason directly into our offices and homes. These guys are the true heroes of Demonland. For those of us who are desk-bound, or for those who are interstate or overseas, these guys provide an invaluable service as we train the house down. It really is the best time of the year on Demonland, when everyone's full of hope. So if you already aren't a member of Demonland or visit demonland.com regularly, I think the last 2 weeks we've had track watchers down at every session. So that's 3 sessions a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Jump on our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and I've been posting links to all the training reports on there. So guys, you've read the training reports. Anything standing out to you guys? We're training the house down once again.
Everybody's doing well at this time of year, except for Joel Smith, of course. I saw that he's running laps again, and but the ones that have really stood out, and I haven't been down yet, but just from the photos that the club has been putting up, the one that really stood out for me immediately was Cozzy Pickett, and the
big
amount of muscle that he has put on is just frightening. And there was one classic photo of him in that, I think it was the first one that came out. I thought it was Byron.
Yeah, he's chunky.
He looked, because he wasn't, he was standing sideways, but it looked exactly like Byron. And you go, this guy's going to be playing in the midfield
not in a fat sense. He hasn't.
No. It was just sheer muscle. And I think I commented on Demonland. Now I know when people get hit by him, they don't get up really quickly.
You'd have to assume that's a program that he was given.
Absolutely.
Like, there's no way he would go off his own bat, would they? So that would suggest there's a clear plan in place, because there's no real benefit if he's a small forward to be super strong. Really, I don't know. Maybe that's not the case.
Maybe they want
the
him.
Stronger you are, the better you are down forward as well. I'm not sure, but
one of the articles mentions some more midfield minutes, so perhaps that's what they're going for.
And the other one from the pictures was Tommy Sparrow, similarly. He looked extremely cut. Obviously spent a lot of time in the gym as well, but until you see him in real life, it's hard to judge. These are only straight out pictures. So
Everyone looks
and
good.
training's always difficult in any case, simply because they haven't got any opposition, so everybody looks fantastic.
And everyone looks good with a tan coming back from their European holidays.
In terms of the track watches, it certainly helps that, two things have been great about them fixing the sheds down at Casey. One, they're training at Gosh's.
Yep.
So the track watchers who all live, probably in that, Toorak, because that's where all Melbourne fans live. It's a long drive down to Casey.
Well, someone said they rode their bike, so they had to be close. Yeah.
Yeah. So people can get to Gosh's rather than hike down the highway and get down there. And the two women's finals in Melbourne were both at Icon Park because of the same reason, because the change rooms or whatever are getting fixed or whatever they're doing down at Casey. So, and just on Gosh's, so you've been to a session, Andy?
No, not yet. I'm planning
I'm
to make it down the next.
Whether how close that is to being finished.
Well, that's done, isn't it?
It's definitely finished. Yeah,
that was done.
The surrounding areas, have they landscaped that at all, or because there's a huge drop off from that surface down to the.
No, it's been levelled off pretty well.
Right.
Yeah, I was down there for the women's presentation after the premiership. All the locals were on there as local footballers playing on there, and dog walkers walking their dogs on it.
On the Gosh's, on our footy ground, on our training venue.
Yeah, it's public access.
Did someone mentioned that they've made a little outdoor gym area? So that I think they look like they've concreted and put up a structure for shelter.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering if they've done anything. Because when I was there last year, it looked still around the edges of the ground was all dirt and it was sort of a bit muddy. And
yeah, I haven't been down, so when I get down, I'll have a look. But someone did mention they've concreted an area with shelter so that they can bring their exercise bikes.
Basically.
Yeah, so they can bring some bikes, I guess, and some maybe weights for the guys who can't participate in
or maybe so when it does rain, which it does regularly in Australia now, apparently. People like the computer people want to be sitting under a bit of cover instead of out in the open that they were before.
Just a couple of reflections from the training reports. It's great to have them because there wasn't that many last year. I mean,
we couldn't.
One event was down there, which was great.
But not only that, you could go down there. I mean, it makes it harder for the location, but you had to watch from behind a fence. But this you can get right up, so it's good. Yep. Sorry.
But a couple of reflections is one, the footy shifted, hasn't it, in terms of they get the footies out straight away now, whereas, there was about 10 years where they seemed to not get the footies out till after Christmas.
That's because they weren't fit as when getting to, not that they weren't fit, but now they have to come. They're all on programs in the off season. So they come in peak condition. You don't have to condition to get to that, which they used to have to do, I guess.
So that was my second reflection was exactly that, how fit these fellas are coming back. I mean, I've seen the photos of Track. He looks unbelievably fit, but so does Clary. And I know Clary had problems last pre-season with his shoulders that sort of he all look super lean, as I've said a number of times. They all look like 400-metre, 600, 800-metre runners. They're incredible looking athletes. And just the final one was there was a photo and there was some commentary on Demonland about it that would be really interesting to watch, of them doing kicking through channels, creating a channel.
Someone mentioned that, yeah.
Yeah, and kicking to presumably, the comment was presumably it's a Williams initiative to kick through poles and I presume that the object of the exercise is to kick relatively, 20, 30 metres without hitting one of the poles on the side as it goes through. So, and trying to get them chest straight to the target and go straight through in a straight line. Hopefully that will improve our accuracy for goal will improve.
I was going to say, can they set those up in front of goals for us? Because I think that's where we need it most.
I think I saw that in action last year from outside the fence down at Casey, and Williams moves them progressively. So it's kicked through the channels from 10 metres, then 20 metres, then 40 metres. Again, it's to get used to hitting targets.
And kicking straight. I mean, it makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, Yeah. The other advantage of Gosh's over Casey, and Sir Why You Little will probably appreciate this, is there's not many snakes down at Gosh's paddock.
Well, except
if you go near
financial
the ground.
types that were out there trying to sell products.
Yeah.
So those crypto people, they're right.
So our track watchers provide Demonland users. This year they provided Demonland users with an exclusive early on in the preseason training schedule. We learned that our newly traded players had been given their new numbers a week or two before it became public just the other day when they announced all the changes for season 2023. The new numbers are as follows. Former Demon captain Nathan Jones's famous number 2 Guernsey, as well made famous a number of years before that by Robbie Flower, and the other premiership player, what was his name? Armstrong. What was it? Stephen Armstrong. Forward Jacob Van Rooyen, who played last season with the number 21, will drop the 1 to become the new number 2 of the team. So that's exciting.
Van Rooyen's number 2, is
number 2, yes.
Yep.
Oh, fantastic.
It's a great number, isn't it? Can't
Yeah,
wait
it's
to
the
see
best
him
number.
tearing it up. An outgoing ruckman will trade his number 6 to a new incoming ruckman. Brodie Grundy will wear number 6. Lockie Hunter takes number 12 from Toby Bedford. Josh Shackey takes number 19 from the delisted Fraser Rosman. Matt Jefferson, our pick number 1 this year, takes Van Rooyen's 21. So it looks like that 21 is for forwards only, because wasn't Cam Pedersen, he was 21, I think, before. So Jed Adams takes Sam Wiedemann's 26. Will Verrill takes Majak Dawes' 28. Joel Smith, formerly number 44, will wear his father's number, 29, previously Jaden Hunt. And Oliver Seston takes Mitch Brown's 38. Kaya Farris-White takes Guy Rigoni's 43. Or was that Harmsy's old number? Not sure who's had 43 since Harmsy, but I don't think anyone had it last year. So there's some new numbers for you guys to get used to.
What, did Hunty get picked up?
Yeah, West Coast.
Yeah.
West Eagles, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we traded him to Eagles, that's right.
So as you know, I mentioned on the last program that we used to sponsor Jaden Hunt. We no longer, obviously, since he got traded, but we were fortunate enough to pick up Brodie Grundy as Demonland's sponsored player. And I do have news tonight as well. I did mention on social media during the week, but we also had to replace Fraser Rosman, and I couldn't believe this player was available when I sort of asked about who was available. So next year we will be sponsoring Stephen May.
Oh, wow.
So
Jeez.
the Demonland
I won't make any joke about the Demonland
do not.
players
No, well,
curse.
we're going to have our first meeting at Entrecot. I'm sure it'll go well, but no. That's with Brodie Grundy, Stephen May, and Karen Paxman. I'm pretty happy with that Demonland stable of players.
And speaking of the Demonland player sponsor curse,
And don't talk about the curse.
there's rumours Paxman's going to Western Australia.
Well, if we lose her, then I'll find someone else.
Grundy's a good one because surely he's not going to go after one season, and so Stephen May's a D for life.
Well, look,
so
I at least got a couple of years with all these guys. Yeah. I know they're all three of them are nearing 30, if not already there. So I'm sure I got a couple of years. I probably did have a chance to get one of the young guys, but over the years we've had so many young guys, and I thought, it's time for me to go with some established premiership players. Given
their Demonland sponsor these players, why can't we get them onto the podcast under the sort of written contract that if we sponsor them, they've got to come on?
I probably can push a bit harder for that, but I will try and get them on. I'm sure it shouldn't be a problem. Let's talk about just quickly our fixture. We've had some snippets of the 23 2023 fixture drop. Round 1 will see us play off against the Bulldogs in another 2021 grand final replay to kick off our season at the MCG on a Saturday night. And hopefully the Saturday night fixture will attract a better crowd than last season when we played the family unfriendly time of Wednesday night. There was speculation a while back that perhaps we would be playing the Magpies, but that was not to be. I don't think the AFL has have enough faith in Melbourne yet to draw the big crowds from marquee games like the Magpies and Cats on a Friday night. That's despite our impressive home ground attendance record last year, where we were 6th on average for home game attendance, 5th for average away attendance, and 5th overall for average home and away attendance. And this was all behind the big four in Collingwood, Carlton, Richmond and Essendon. But it is important to note that all of those teams have the advantage of playing each other twice, whereas we only played Collingwood twice of those big four teams. So I think our record of where we ended up with home and away attendance for the year is quite impressive, considering all that. Are you guys happy with our round 1 matchup, George?
It's neither here nor there. I think it's more important to us things like which were the eternal gripes on Demonland. When do we go to Cardinia Park?
Oh, I'll definitely.
Those sort of scenarios.
Yeah,
How many times are Collingwood going to go there?
Never.
What my great hope was for next season that we play Hawthorn and St Kilda early on while their supporters will turn up, because I don't think they're going to last very long. Last thing we need is trying to play against St Kilda in round 17 or 18. But anyhow, that's just conjecture. But yeah, I hope we get reward for where we finished last year and the previous year. I don't know that the AFL is particularly good at that sort of thing. They're constantly fixated with these four or five major teams.
From what I'm hearing, Carlton are going to get a lot of Friday night / Thursday night games. So they have one good year, and all of a sudden it's back on the Carlton bandwagon, bin man.
Yeah. I was going to say the same thing, George. I'll be ropeable if we don't, because it's the whole, it's a joke, the fixture. It's just the fix is the key part of that word, because this equalisation through a fixture concept has never been articulated properly. It has got there's no rules in place. This somehow floating fixture that you get, it advantages one club massively every year that they get wrong. Every year it happens. And I just hope that we get our fair crack. And so my thoughts a little bit about the fixture are, what I hope to see is I really hope we don't get such a hard run into the finals next year. I thought that, that disadvantaged us. It was hard, made it difficult for us. And Geelong got exactly the opposite. They got the draw that I would love to have a run into the finals like we did in 21. And
they're going to get it again this year because their stadium's not ready early on.
So the other two thoughts I had about it is that, and this is only being half facetious, but we'll get into this next season, no doubt. But we'll have that period during the middle of the year when we're off the boil a bit because of the loading. It will be important for our chances of where we finish, who we play in that period. So in that 8-week period, the 7 or 8 week period, hopefully we play clubs down the bottom of the ladder during that period. The other one that, speaking of Geelong, is that it's going to drive me insane because their taxpayer park is out of action for half the season, if they get the predominant game, like most of their home games in the back half, and play heaps of games down at Cardinia Park, in terms of a fair draw, it's not a draw, a fixture, it's just rubbish. If they end up playing in their last 11 games, 7 or 8 games down at Cardinia Park, that is coming into the finals. It is a ridiculous advantage that you're handing one club. And then on top of that, you make, say, Melbourne travel down there again for like we have done for 40 years. And it just, I think the whole fixture is a shocker. Now, on top of it, the other thought I had was the stupid name they've come up with for the gather round. I mean, it's like, what is that all about? So I haven't actually given it much thought about how I feel about that round in particular, but it's ironic that AFL was copying NRL after decades of basically saying they're rubbish up there. So, I mean, I'll be curious to see how it goes, but surely to goodness they could have come up with something better than gather round.
Yeah. The other thing about the gather round is who gets allocated the home game.
Well, that's I've got a bit of a rant.
If we get a home game playing in Port Adelaide or something like that.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
Well, I've got a rant about that because, as we know, the round 5 will be the Magic or / gather round, and all matches are going to be, as we know, played in South Australia. It does net every club $500,000 each, so I'm happy to take that money.
From where? Where does that come from?
I don't know. Must be some type of advertising TV. I don't know. There's money. South Australian government paid for it.
Yeah. Right. Have they?
Yep. We're getting $500,000, so I'll take. Apparently, it was meant to be $1 million or something, closer to $1 million initially. Anyway, only downside is that some clubs, as George mentioned, are going to be forced to play one of their home games in that round. And my MFC SS says that we'll be one of those clubs that gets stiffed with this, and we'll get the double whammy by having to play Freo or the Lions at home in Adelaide and losing any home ground advantage that we might have had playing at the G, except Freo.
What a great record there. We've got a fantastic record under Goodwin at Adelaide. So we're probably more chance of winning at Adelaide Oval than at the MCG.
Okay, but there's no guarantee we're going to be playing at Adelaide Oval. Not all the games are at Adelaide Oval. We might be shunted to some, I don't even know.
Or somewhere.
Yeah, I don't even know a place in suburban Adelaide where we might be. But
Glenelg.
Yeah. We could be at some shitty ground, so don't get too excited.
Right, okay.
And of course, my one wish, if I could have one, was that we would play the Cats as their home game. But as my MFCSS comes in, we'll probably end up playing the Cats at the Cattery again this time as they unveil their premiership flag at their, as you said, government-funded stadium, probably in front of just Cats fans. You know, there'll be one of those days, Cats fans all come in for free. No Melbourne fans can come watch us at this place. So that's what's going to happen to us. It's also
on the fixture. The other one that, because it's come out in drips and drabs. Well, there's only 3 been announced, but round 16 against GWS.
That was
at the Alice.
I was just about to say,
I'm super keen to go up and see a game up there at some point.
Well, if I was you, I would work out when round 16 is going to be, because I think accommodation goes pretty quickly there.
Yeah, even tickets to the game, and it's only got a 5,000 capacity.
Right.
But it's good that we are playing GWS there instead of, say, Port Adelaide or Adelaide, who have sort of a bigger following in that neck of the woods. So that's good. That I'm happy to play GWS there. I know we don't get to play them then at the G, like we thumped them. They've screwed us again. It was the one team we absolutely pantsed last year, and they're going up there. Anyway, that's all that's dropped so far, but we do know we are playing Anzac Eve and Queen's Birthday. Both of those are home fixtures for us this year, so we'll sort of make some money, a bit of money. So that's it. Any other fixture wish list for you guys? No? We'll move on. Financials. We also had some financials drop from the club this week, and we find ourselves in an unfamiliar financially secure position. Some highlights: operating profit of $3.5 million, a $1.4 million or 67% increase on 2021. Revenue, $55 million, an increase of $12 million or 28% from 2021. The growth included $3.7 million increase in corporate income, 3.5 increase in match receipts, and 2.2 million increase in membership income. But look, that's on the back of the membership increase, which, as I mentioned in our season review, that's going to be one of our massive. It's going to be very hard to retain that 60,000 plus membership. That's going to take a big hit, I'm sure. And look, sustained success. Look, the increase in match receipts, if that's on 2021, there was only half of 2021. So we'll see what happens next year. But with all this financial stuff, sustained success is the key. Because if we have some lean years, that disappears, that evaporates very, very quickly. You gotta maintain the success if you want to maintain. And I must say that a lot of that, some of that financial windfall, I'm sure, was on the back of increased merchandising as well, which when you don't win premierships, that's going to drop off too. So yeah,
the whole it's far too easy to get excited about. Everybody hears $3.5 million, and that's great. That's fantastic as a profit, all that sort of thing. It's off the back of the premiership. It was from the 31st of October last year. So all the membership numbers, all the merchandise numbers, all the corporate sponsorship, all the gates receipts are following a premiership. That's why we were sold out. That's why we had so many members. So it's not surprising whatsoever. And the other thing is, don't compare it with 2021. There were no games to go to.
Yeah.
So that's why there was a substantial increase in all those areas.
And the games you could go to were all, remember, early on in the year, you could only have X amount of
So
people.
You shouldn't be comparing with 2021 as all the media stuff came out. You should be comparing with 2020 or 2019 more to the point.
Not even 2020, 2019, yeah.
The other thing is you've got to look at what everybody else is doing as well. That sounds fantastic for us. The Bulldogs made a $5 million profit this year.
Wow.
The team that we absolutely flattened in the premiership the previous year, they've got $88 million in total assets. We've got 36. So that gives you an idea about what we're up against. Collingwood, $50 million net assets. We've got 36. It's that's the game that we're in. So don't get excited about $3.5 million because everybody else is doing just as equally. We haven't seen the figures come out of West Coast and Adelaide. They'll be just as equally good and probably a lot better. So it's great to do it, but it's all on the back of that success, and we've got to keep doing it every single year. Because that's the model they've decided we're going to pursue. So it's better than what it was when I first started going to annual general meetings and reading financial reports 30 years ago, where our total assets were barely the price of a house in Melbourne after 150 odd years. So we've come a long way, but we've still got a long way to go.
It's interesting you mention the Dogs in that context. So that's pretty impressive numbers. Of course, they've got the advantage of a fantastic home ground, and I drove past there the other day. I live over in Altona, and so driving past, go over the overpass. They're resurfacing that. They've taken up all of and I think by the look, the way they're doing it is to make it bigger. So it's because it's relatively small, but I think they've extended it towards the north. On the north end, I guess, all the turf was up. So, but they've, those facilities are pretty good there now, and they're building. They've got housing that's coming up around it. That it's not the Dogs, but also the relationship they've got with Vic Uni there. And
it is the Dogs. They were gifted a great big parcel of land, and they've basically sold it off.
Right, so that probably explains that.
That's why they've got $88 million of assets. But the other thing is they've been refurbishing the Skinner Reserve. So they've got two training grounds effectively.
But it's like it's a great once that's finished, that'll be fantastic. The Whitten Oval, the whole, there's a basketball arena that sits next to it. It's got it's really. It makes me jealous when I go there to see that they've got that facility. And, of course, as we've all talked about ad infinitum, we'd love to have the same.
Yeah.
Just doesn't seem to be happening.
Anyhow, let's move on to something.
All right, let's move on to something exciting. A little over 2 weeks ago, the club won another premiership. It's third in 15 months. This time it was our women's team who won their inaugural flag in the competition's seventh season. As the second-ranked team for the season by just 0.3%, the Demons were ultimately forced to play the grand final away at an unfamiliar oval in Springfield in Queensland in a low-scoring arm wrestle between the two best offensive and defensive teams. The Demons were victorious by 4 points. I must say that the old ticker took a bit of a beating during the match. I'm not a fan of close games that we're involved in. I get nervous enough when we have a comfortable lead, so you can imagine my anxiety when we have a close match. Guys, it was a great send-off for Daisy, if that's to be her last game. I know she didn't want to make it all about her, but I was just wrapped for her, and I was wrapped for the girls. They had a fantastic season. George, you want to take us through some of your thoughts on it? We haven't spoken for a while, so the end of the season, the finals. What do you want to say?
Firstly, before we get to the good news, where we win the premiership and all the efforts that went into that, I have to say, what an almighty cock up by the AFL in terms of the operation.
Unbelievable.
How in the hell can you finish up playing on a ground that's barely...
The showcase game of the women's thing after jerking them around all season with the fixture. They still don't even know when next year's fixture's going to be. It drives me insane. It's unbelievable.
Let's go play up on a ground that's only just had the grass laid down in 35 degrees of temperature.
But did they did that because Brisbane were adamant that gets played in Queensland, so their options were very limited.
I don't know that that's the case.
Would Brisbane be happy to play at Marvel?
Yes, I think I heard them say that.
Oh, really? Yeah. So why didn't they play there?
Because they wanted to have it up in Brisbane.
Who did that?
Won the AFL.
But if Brisbane are saying we're happy to play on a good surface,
AFL wanted it up in Sydney, is what I understood.
Brisbane,
up in Queensland.
Anyhow, it was an almighty cock up from the start. It was interesting. I actually spoke to one of the assistant coaches at the presentation the other week, and he said that when they first trained on it, they had the opportunity beforehand. They realised they couldn't bounce the ball.
Oh, really?
The ball didn't rebound because it's it's only grass that's a month old.
Wow.
So if they tried to bounce the ball, it would have finished up flat on the ground. I think if you have a look at the highlights reel, at least when Sinead Goldrick got run down, it was because when she tried
it
was Goldrick in the middle and dug up a piece of turf under her foot. That's what caused it to slow up, and they dragged it down, got called holding the ball. But that was typical of the condition of the ground. It was just too soft underneath.
And as Kate Roffey said, George, that she didn't extrapolate fully, but I take from her comment that is that we had to readjust the way we play. We've built this model of running in waves and the handball chains, and that requires at least a few bounces, doesn't it? And
when you've got people like Bannon who use it to extent,
exactly.
Just not able to use it. Anyhow, they after the complete disaster about where it was being played and what it was being played, they followed it up with the speeches and the umpires during the game, and where the opposition, the ground announcer tried to get 20 players onto the dais instead of doing one at a time.
Well, first of all,
it was just a complete debacle.
I have no problem with the opposition captain talking, but that went on way too long. And then it's number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5.
Yeah, that was her. But also, it looked hokey. I mean, fair enough. It looks like a good facility and great. They get to train there, and it's good that they're investing in AFLW. But it looked like a suburban ground with the shots up the thingo. And as someone on Demonland noted, why on earth didn't they put it at give Southport a shot in the arm and support Queensland footy? Southport ground is, by all accounts, just a magnificent footy oval. Why not play it at a proper football ground that's well established and support Queensland footy at the same time?
Yeah. Anyhow, we'll move on to the premiership and the game. Look, this was, despite the fact there were only 4 goals kicked overall in the game, it was a very enthralling and entertaining game. And what I was particularly impressed about was we turned it into a real battle, that it was about guts and determination, and some of the efforts were just fantastic from the players across the ground. We shut down their best options. Shelley Heath shut down Hodder, who their small forward, who's been kicking goals left, right, and centre. Talia Gillard absolutely shut down Wardlaw with only 3 possessions for the whole game. She's the leading goal kicker in the competition.
Gillard, what a pickup! Just incredible. Had a great end to the season.
Hanks in the middle shut down Emily Bates, their main midfielder. All of a sudden, the Brisbane Brisbane, who were depending on these really talented and highly skilled players, just didn't have them. And the guts of the girls in the middle, I'm really impressed with. And this was again all about recruiting and retention of players. When you look at our midfield of Purcell and West and Hanks, last year Purcell played one game, or the previous season played one game, I think, one or two, because she was coming back from an ACL. West wasn't playing at all. That she was still playing down at Casey and finally got onto the team.
West and Purcell had such good years that it made, like, Hanks is so underrated, but she's so underrated because these two had such fantastic years, I think. But Hanks, it really is criminally underrated.
The interesting thing is they're all powerful girls, really, really strong and powerful. And that's exactly what I think the game has changed from, even the season before, but certainly over the last 2 or 3 years. You're getting a different style of play. You're getting a much more powerful player. They're spending more time in the gym. And as a result, things like, a couple of years ago, everybody knew Taylor Harris is the only player who could kick 50 metres. Now you've got a whole series of players throughout the whole competition.
Gillard being one of them.
Yeah, Gillard being one who can kick long distances, and even our own girls like Shelley Heath and Lily Mithen could barely kick over a jam tin 2 years ago. They're getting good distance with their kicks. They're spending more time in the gym. They're getting the strength. They're getting the training, and it's really starting to show up. But overall, it was just a fantastic effort. It was really gutsy. It was knock them down, drag them out in the end. The umpiring was just shocking.
It was appalling. It was just appalling.
The number of times that Davidson, for Brisbane, pushed players in the back, 2 and 3 and 4 times during the game, and wasn't called for it, and particularly that one just before the 3/4 time siren. It was just ridiculous that the quality changed. And then when we got our noses in front, all of a sudden we became the beneficiaries. But it was still only a couple of points difference at that stage. But certainly they'd got the rub of the green up to that point. But great effort. Really impressed with Blaheen Mackin. She's played. She wasn't playing before this season. Wasn't playing.
I love her step.
In one
of a great step.
In one of the finals, I don't know if it was the preliminary final or the one before, where she did that side step, sold some candy. That was just like someone had been playing,
Well, that's a Gaelic footy move.
Yeah, it is.
But
you got to have
given a license to do it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and again, she's powerful. She's really powerful.
Yeah.
It's great. Really impressed with the efforts that, when you look at Taylor Harris, who was smashed in the face and came up bleeding. Karen Pax.
And
the very next contest was ferocious.
Had hurt her shoulder the week before, and having hurt my shoulder, I know what it feels like.
Karen Paxman, our sponsored player, was on the ground with obviously cramps to the thighs, could not move. That's how much they were putting in that last quarter. They were completely shot, and all effort and all credit to them. That gets you premierships, and they did it. It was a fantastic effort.
Big man, before you go on, George, did you think Eliza West was robbed of a Norm Smith medal? Or whatever the equivalent is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So was
really
Dangerfield, by the way, for the Norm Smith. While I think about it,
he was. I think if he would have kicked maybe one more goal, the big man, go ahead.
I couldn't believe Eliza West didn't win it. I could not believe it. Just on a couple of things on Eliza West. Speaking of the umpires, the look she gave the umpire after she got pinged, she grabbed the ball. Tackled by 2 players immediately. You speak of strength. She runs 10 metres basically with 2 tacklers hanging off her and gets done for holding the ball. Had no chance, no prior opportunity. But I don't know what the umpire's brain must have been thinking. Okay, she's 10 metres from the contest where she picked the ball up, must ping her.
Well, she would have been better off just lying on the ground.
Of course, the withering look she gave the umpires. I thought. Yeah. But I have to say, I just loved the end of the season, even the last game of the home and away season, where it was thrilling how close we were.
Yeah.
Daisy centered the ball and said if she'd gone for goal and even we got a point, I think it would have been enough.
Yeah, it was 1 point.
That extra percentage, and we would have been able to watch them at the G and some jumped up footy ground up north. But the two finals at Icon Park at Princess Park were. I just loved it. And I have to say that particularly the first one, the weather was beautiful. It was twilight on a Friday night. I'd worked in town. I was able to get, like old school times, get the tram up Princess Park to, the stops directly outside, straight in. The vibe, and I don't know if you guys went, but the energy in the crowd was just really fantastic, really diverse, lots of young women, lots of young kids. Blessedly no loud music playing in the break, so I could chat to my mate that, we could actually have, like old days, have a conversation, because, during the game I like to watch the bloody game, not talk. Just the whole energy was fantastic. Bannon's goal in that first game, where she ran around the player on the mark, the run she did on the wing, that was on the wing. It was just like really probably as much as I've enjoyed a game of footy going to live for 30 years, I reckon. I just loved it. The next game against the Roos was scrappy. You couldn't probably tell on the television, but it was howling wind, like really strong, but it was a weird wind. It was diagonally across the ground. So it was bad either way, but just our grit to we were never going to lose that in that second half. And even though the grand final wasn't quite the same in terms of the skill, and the ground explains it, the heat probably explains it as well. I mean, in terms of the quality of the football, but as you both said, it was such an intense game. It was like, I don't really follow soccer, but I love watching Socceroos and Matildas games. And when I'm invested in soccer, part of the DNA of soccer is the tension of, one goal can change everything. That's how I felt like for the entire second half, because really after the first quarter, I thought we dominated that match. I thought West was clearly our best player. So there's, God knows what the award in the AFL is. It's, it would be a good pub quiz. Could anyone name the last 5 best finals players, whatever that award is? If there was an award for that in the AFLW, it would go to Westie for sure. She was awesome in all 3 finals and was totally robbed for the best player in the grand final. In the grand final itself, I thought she and Gillard were almost the 2 most influential players. And Gillard, has grown. She was awesome in the North Melbourne game as well. But she's really disciplined. I like the way she's clearly got a message, though, is a rule is if you can get the ball, just kick it as far as you can, don't jerk around. I thought those 2 players were brilliant. I've heard Hanks be described as underrated a few times recently. Who could underrate her? To my mind, she's the best player in the AFL.
Yeah, I think just in the wider
natural footballer. In the AFLW, she's the most natural footballer. Well, certainly at Melbourne, and of all the players, and including Daisy, or maybe not Daisy, but I just think she's a brilliant footballer. The way she moves.
I think in this game, the reason people didn't notice her because she took Emily Bates out of the game, and people see. Certainly Westie, rightly so, she's got the ball in her hand, but Emily Bates didn't because Hanks was putting the work into her. So it's one. But I think after the game, Daisy credited it, or Taylor Harris credited it with, or maybe even Stanier, about the work that she did on the inside that people just don't notice. But she was fantastic.
And she makes such good decisions. And late in the game, I forget the exact scenario, but I just remember thinking she saved, stopped them moving forward just purely because she made a smart decision. And that's what I mean by being a natural footballer. She's smart, clever, moves well, but doesn't waste a possession. So doesn't try to kick too long, hits targets. She's just a fantastic player. I think one of the really interesting things actually about the finals is the last 2 games is Paxi didn't really have a huge influence. So that's a real big plus. And in the final, the commentators made no mention of this. It was frustrating. Paxi was off the ground for a big chunk of the second half with the cramp that you mentioned. They couldn't get her back. She didn't look like she was going to come back on, so they didn't really have a huge influence. But the last 15 minutes of that game were super stressful, and it was, I have to say I cried when I had tears when the D's won, which I didn't in the men's final. And maybe it was because the tension was different. Like, there wasn't in the last quarter, there wasn't much tension in the men's win, but there was in this game. And it felt, I mentioned the soccer, it felt like that, where one goal, kept on thinking they're going to steal this game because they'll get one goal against the run of play. So, all credit to Stinney. I really love the positive energy all of the team put towards her. Fantastic effort by the women. I really loved this season, and I really loved particularly the finals in that last game, and so all power to all of them. But my favourite player, Westy, I thought she was just brilliant in the final series. And as I mentioned during the year on the podcast, I've never seen a footballer improve as much as she has in a short period of time. Just the final comment about the AFLW, I could not agree more with what your comments were about the AFL and the whole. The way this was organised for it was embarrassing. I thought in the photo you could, on the coverage, there's cars parked up the road. Half expected when we kicked the goal you'd hear someone tooting a horn. So it's like, it's great. The pay's great. Will only get better now that the women can, realistically get paid enough money to maybe only work part-time, not full-time, and play football.
That's actually a difficulty for them. Next year, like I said, I was talking to this assistant coach, and the competitive bargaining agreement is still not finalised for next year. There was a rush through to get a single year agreement in place so that the AFLW could go ahead, even the men's competition. That's still not been finalised.
Oh, really?
For next year. There was a temporary sort of let's get it over the line and come back to it. So that's the first thing. The girls won't be back until next June, but they don't know that exactly.
Well, they don't know that. How can they plan? They've got lives. Like they might get married or have children or travel overseas or do another job or finish their degree or whatever.
The girls from overseas as well.
Well, that's a huge thing because that's puts it smack bang in the middle of the Gaelic finals if it starts in June.
Yeah, but again, it's all unknown. And the other real concern that they had was the part-time nature. They're because at this point they're still part-time. There's been a lot of employers who've been very generous as they become more professional. Instead of 1 day off a week or 2 days off a week to go to training, they're now being asked to go for 4 days a week off to training, and the employers are getting a bit narky about it. So we really need quickly to get the competition on at least a decent pay footing so that the girls can become fully professional. It's about time.
And the other thing, just finally about the AFLW, is that my experience at Icon Park just really super reinforced to me that they should bite the bullet and invest money in Icon Park, bring it up to AFL standard and play the majority of the women's games at that ground, because it's even on the super windy game against North, it's still protected from the stands. It's got almost 360-degree coverage from the stands. The surface is great. It's slightly smaller. It's a great spot to get to. It's a great viewing ground. It just makes for better footy. And, the women deserve to play on elite standard, grounds, basically.
And then play the grand final, at least in Marvel, since the AFL now own the ground.
Yeah.
There's one thing about Icon Park that I just cannot stand, especially watching on TV, and that's seeing that Carlton logo.
Okay. I was looking at it and said to my mate, well, why did they put the Carlton logo all the way down the end of the stand? Did they get the memo wrong? Well, right in the middle.
Who knows? But let's relocate Carlton out of there and make them have to scrounge for funding from the government.
And fun fact, I think the D's played the last game ever in AFL there. I think we played Fitzroy. It was the last game of AFL played at Princess Park, and we played it. I might be wrong. We need Super Mikado on the job.
We do. All right. We'll try and track that down for next year if anyone remembers. I think we'll leave it there. I want to thank my co-host for another stellar year of podcasting. Whilst the boys didn't get the job done on the field this season, you boys still fronted up week in, week out. So thank you very much. Thank you to our listeners and the callers and all the Demonland posters who provided questions and comments throughout the season. We'll be back in the pre-season, no doubt, to do our season preview. So have a think about what you guys want to talk about. In addition, we'll give any updates from training and any scratch matches. Of course, you can still follow all of the pre-season training action at demonland.com as our track watchers keep you updated with all the happenings out at Gosh's Paddock or Casey Fields, or just follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can stay up to date with the latest from Demonland. Boys, thank you very much. It's been a great year, and we'll see you next year.
Go Redlegs.
Go
Hopefully
Legs.
you can get it up soon, Andy.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll see. The podcast or my arm?
No, your arm.
All right, boys. We'll be back next year. Go Dings.
Go Redlegs.
Come on, demon. Come on, demon.